Hello and welcome to JRock's Babylon News for April 27th, 2026. And it's been about a month since we done one of these newscasts because we've just been so busy um, filming other shows and really hasn't been a lot of news till now. And so, unless there's a lot of news to report on, we wait until we have enough material to do a great show. So let's get right into it today, folks. And this is what I want you to know about. Now, singer David Lee Roth left Van Halen on April Fool's Day, 1985. Now, can you imagine that morning the news breaks that David Lee Roth has left Van Halen? You can imagine people in the press and even his Van Halen bandmates probably thought, Dave's it's got to be a joke, right? April Fools. He announces he's leaving the band, but my God, thinking back to that time in rock and roll history, I tell you, folks, I remember what a big deal it was when David Lee Roth left Van Halen. You got to remember, the year before, it was a big, huge year with a 1984 album, and that was a blockbuster tour. But behind the scenes, tensions had apparently been building for the last several years between Dave and the Van Halen brothers, and things just kind of, came to a sudden end. And Dave went solo, and Van Halen, the following year, in 1986, would release a very first album with Sammy Hagar. Of course, I'm talking about 5150, which celebrated its 40th anniversary this year in 2026. In fact, there was just a 40th anniversary edition of 5150 released in March of 2026 this year. And if you haven't gone out and bought that, you're going to want to check it out. It's a real cool package. And down the line, we're going to be doing one of our shows talking about the 40th anniversary of Van Halen's 5150. So be on the lookout for that in the months ahead, folks. But now, also, it's important to kind of remember some of our fallen heroes. And it was just a couple of years back that we lost Firehouse lead singer C.J. Snare. And so, he died April 5th, 2024 of cancer, of course. And, like a lot of people, I wasn't a huge Firehouse fan, but I sure did love some of the early stuff the band did. In fact, probably if you asked me to sit here and answer the question, what was your all-time favorite Firehouse song? And I think it's got to be Don't Treat Me Bad. For the simple fact, that was the very first song I ever heard by Firehouse. In fact, it was probably the music video I saw for the song on MTV, Headbangers Ball, back in the day, if you can believe that. And that was kind of my first exposure of Firehouse. So that's why that has a huge, huge special place in my heart, when I think of Firehouse. Now, also remembering some fallen rock heroes, we're also remembering Plasmatic singer Wendy O. Williams, who sadly committed suicide on April 6th, 1998. I can't believe it's been that many years, since she's passed away. But man, she was just a force. Look up the Plasmatics, look up Wendy O. Williams. In fact, she did a killer version of the Kiss song "It's My Life" off of her Wendy O. Williams Wow solo album. You can look it up on YouTube, and man, it's just a killer version. Gene Simmons, of course, produced that. So you'll want to check that out if you just if you're a Wendy Williams fan or just want to kind of remember for Wendy Williams for the punk rock goddess that she was. And so that's why we're bringing these people up, because it's important to remember our fallen heroes. I think, folks. Now, getting into some more modern day news, it was about 3-4 weeks ago that singer Andrew Freeman announced that he's left Last in Line, and that, of course, is the band featuring Vivian Campbell and Vinny Appice and Phil Sassoon. and pretty much the band was Vivian Campbell's side project. You know, his day job, of course, is as lead guitarist for Def Leppard. Um, but a couple of years back, um, all of a sudden, Vivian kind of wanted to go back to playing the Dio era songs that he was a part of, and he got together with Vinny Appice and Jimmy Bain, who sadly passed on since the band first got together, and it was a way for him and Vinny and Jimmy to kind of reconnect, playing those old classic Dio songs that they were all part of, you know, as far as the original Dio band. And so that's initially why Last in Line got together. But over the years, of course, because of Vivian Campbell's very busy schedule with, like I said, his day job, Def Leppard, Last in Line has become more of a side project. So Andrew Freeman, the singer, announced that he made the hard decision to leave Last in Line because he says, you know, pretty much this band has become Vivian Campbell's side project, and I understand that because you know, he's in Def Leppard, and that takes priority. He says, but I could not afford to make a living doing that anymore. So he's gone back to touring with Lynch Mob. So if you go see Lynch Mob playing out live, you know, these days you'll see Andrew Freeman, formerly of Last in Line, fronting the band. So congratulations on Andrew Freeman getting a more steady gig with Lynch Mob. That's a gig he's previously had. And so I think it's fun to see what the new Lynch Mob's going to sound like with Andrew Freeman. But again, he's played live with Lynch Mob again. So I think it's nothing. If anything, it's the Lynch Mob fans will love it that a former vocalist is returning to the band. You know, so we'll see what becomes of that. You know, so congratulations to Andrew Freeman on going back to Lynch Mob. And now here's some more exciting news in the hard rock metal community. Former Whitesnake guitarist Joel Hoekstra has now joined Stephen Pearcy's solo band, and he is now not only part of Stephen's solo band, but he is going out with Stephen's band. Of course, 2026 marks the 40th anniversary of the third Rat album, which of course was Dancing Undercover. And so when Stephen goes out with the solo band, which also features Blas Elias and Joel Hoekstra here, and of course Eric Ferratinos and Matt Thorne on bass, the solo band is going to back Stephen up, and they're going to be playing the Dancing Undercover Rat album, I guess in its entirety, as a way to kind of celebrate the 40th anniversary. And that is something Stephen has done with his solo band over the last several years, you know, with these anniversaries coming up of these classic Rat albums. And so that'll be a fun thing for anybody that's a Rat fan to go out and see. And you know, one thing I can say is who would not love for Rat, the actual Rat band, to go out there and celebrate the 40th anniversary of Dancing. I don't think we're going to get it, just for the fact that the Rat guys don't really get along too well. I mean, it seems like, you know, Stephen and Pearcy are doing this. Stephen Pearcy and Warren DeMartini are doing these shows dubbed as DeMartini and Pearcy. There's talk that they're working on some kind of a record together. I can't wait to see what becomes of that. And really, Stephen and Warren, let's be honest, they're the ones I think that are when you think of Rat, they're two of the main writers. You know, I would love to see Juan back in the band. I think he was a force to be reckoned with. Bob Blotzer, I could take him or leave him. You know, but I think this is, you know, a pretty solid band that Stephen has. So it's not the real Rat, but I think it's as close as you're going to get, because these players like Joel Hoekstra and Blas Elias, they're that caliber of you know, the musicianship that was in the original Rat band. You're never going to get the original 5 Rat guys back together. I think obviously, you know, Robin King Crosby, who was the one guy that everybody in the band seemed to get along with. He was a peacemaker. Sadly, he passed away a number of years ago, and even Stephen said that's part of the reason he doesn't want to get Rat back together. He said Rat without Robin just isn't the same, and he said we tried to make it work, and it fell apart every time. So who knows if original Rat will ever get back together? But that's what's going on, kind of in the Rat world right now. So check it out. Now, the bands are going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2026. Let's talk about that now, because this is a very interesting group of bands that are going in. We're not going to have too much commentary. We'll talk about that down the line, maybe in one of these future news episodes. But let's just kind of go down the list of who got in. Okay, Phil Collins, of course, legendary drummer and lead singer of a band, Genesis. He's going in as a solo artist, and very, very much deserving because, when Peter Gabriel left Genesis in the late 1970s, a lot of people question if Genesis would be able to find a replacement. Well, they found a replacement with the guy who was already in the band, the drummer. And so when the drummer started doing double duty, he was playing drums and became a lead singer. In my opinion, maybe the band's best lead singer to date. And he took Genesis to another level. And he was also able to branch out as a very successful solo artist. So to say that Phil Collins is not long in the Rock and Roll Fame is really kind of an understatement. And I'm a huge Phil Collins fan. I mean, I don't own a Phil Collins CD even or anything in my CD collection, but I will tell you this, because I was around in the 1970s and 80s. I have an appreciation for what Phil Collins accomplished in his musical career. I mean, for most of his career, he's primarily a drummer, but like I said, he eventually became a successful lead singer as well. And as far as his drumming ability, talk about the guy's a real rock and roll warrior. I mean, he's, I think, about 80 years old now. He's not able to retire. He's retired pretty much from touring. He can't perform really live anymore for the simple fact that he suffers from carpal tunnel. He's unable to drum. So, again, a guy that really was a rock and roll warrior. He rock and rolled until he couldn't rock and roll anymore, especially as a drummer. I guess he could get up there and still, sing if he wanted to, but I think his health is not what it once was. 80 years old is, I've read reports that his health is kind of, not that it's failing, but I guess when you get 80 years old, you just can't do what you could 40 years ago, So there's that. Now, Iron Maiden, okay, finally got in. Now, I'm not surprised Iron Maiden made into Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Finally, I say, because they've been nominated. They're the one band that's been nominated over and over and over. And so a lot of times what happens with these bands that are constantly nominated is eventually they get in just by kind of default. Okay, now Iron Maiden has been they've been nominated time and time again, and each time they miss it by this much. So it's one of those things where I think they just they had to induct Iron Maiden finally. Okay, so who will become the next band that should get in that won't, and then again eventually by just pure default. Same thing with Kiss and Van Halen. They finally got in, but after several years of being nominated and then not inducted. So again, it's one of those things that a lot of times, like what happened with Iron Maiden, just simply by default. Okay, well, if they got nominated again, if we don't put them in this time, there's going to be a huge backlash. So I think that's what happened there. Whatever, but it's a good thing that we got a metal band in this year. I couldn't believe it. Now, another band two different bands that are kind of got to go hand in hand. New Order and Joy Division. Now, I could not sit here and name a New Order song, but I'm well aware that there's a band called New Order. Joy Division, I'm not too sure about who the band is, but apparently there's a association with the New Order and Joy Division, so both bands are getting in together. Oasis, I don't really know, but they're Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you know, band to me. But but then again, I think they deserve to get in for the simple fact, maybe if you base it on the record sales and popularity of the band, okay, so they finally got in. Sade again, another artist that dates back to the 1980s. She's not as I don't want to say she's not as popular as she once was because she's still out there um, making music. But I think this is also kind of a nod to what was popular in the 80s, saying, okay, well, Sade, let's give her some recognition. Let's get her in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, again, I don't know that, and this may be a controversial statement. I don't know that I consider Sade's music rock and roll. I mean, I might say you could maybe possibly say it's pop, it's R&B, but okay, and you say maybe R&B has some roots in rock and roll, but not Sade music. So I don't hear the rock and roll, um, beat, and when I listen to Sade's music, and honestly, I don't listen to too much, but the stuff that I've heard, even back in the day when she uh, had her video on MTV and that. I don't remember rocking out Sade, just never did. Another one, Luther Vandross. Now, I get that maybe he's one of these artists being honored several years after he's passed on. He's a very popular artist during his lifetime, but again, I might question is Luther Vandross rock and roll. I don't know. I might say he's a lot closer to R&B, but okay, who am I to kind of question that? But again, and not that he doesn't deserve to be in. I mean, maybe simple fact that he's an artist passed on. Hey, let's honor him. Um, Wu Tang Clan. They finally got in now. They're not my cup of rock and roll, but I will say Wu Tang Clan. I can see why they are included here in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were very popular back in the day, so I do think again, if you base this on a band's popularity and their longevity, and even their popularity at the time when they were huge, record sales, okay, they deserve to get in now. Again, we can do a whole another maybe kind of episode of one of our new specials down the line on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and kind of some of the controversies about it. Or we're not going to get too much into that, but okay, so we just went down a huge list, folks, of bands that are going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame um, in 2026. Now, I'm going to go down a list of just think about the bands that we just talked about that are getting in this year. Okay, the list we're going down now. This is bands that were also nominated, but they did not get enough votes to make it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. So they will have other chances down the line, and I'm willing to bet that at least one or two of these bands eventually will get in simply by default. So it kind of amazes me some of these bands that didn't get in. Okay, or artists, I should say. Mariah Carey. Now, again, she's a pop diva, very popular. Not as popular as she was in the 80s or 90s, let's be honest, but she's still out there making music. She's still out there. I mean, she still has the number one Christmas song every year. Okay, so let's not deny her that. But I'm very surprised that I was very much expecting maybe like Mariah Carey to get in and instead of Iron Maiden. But I think the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like I said, okay, Iron Maiden, how many times have they been nominated and not got in? And also, I think, let's be honest, Iron Maiden's had a much longer career than Mariah Carey. She's still very young, so she's going to get in, I'm sure. I mean, if you get Dolly Parton in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'm sure eventually Mariah Carey can get in. I would say even Mariah Carey's a little more deserving to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because she's much more of a pop artist, let's say, than even Sade. She had a lot of hit music videos on MTV back in the day. And so I could qualify her as going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't really have a problem with that. But nice to see that Iron Maiden got in before Mariah Carey. Okay, finally something they did right. Okay, let's see. Pink. Now again, Pink. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I couldn't name a single Pink song, but I remember at one point when I think it was a debut album, Pink album came out, uh, big massive hit all over radio and MTV, and so for a slight moment in time, she was making some serious noise all over the place. But I have not heard anything from Pink in several years. I do think she's still out there making music. She's just not at the level she once was. So that's probably has a lot to do with why she didn't get enough votes to get in this year. You know, maybe she has a few more records out. Maybe by that point she'll really deserve to kind of get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I think she's still very young, and as she'd gotten in, not that it would have been deserved, but you know, you might say, yeah, well, wow, how could Pink go in, you know, before Iron Maiden? So thank God that didn't happen. You know, just put in my 2 cents. A band that I'm really shocked did not get in. They got nominated, but NXS, another big, huge band from the late 80s, early 90s. And of course, with their lead singer, Michael Hutchence, committing suicide, um, you know, that'd be another reason to get them in. It's to honor their fallen front man. But again, they had huge record sales. They were all over MTV and the radio. So another band that I could see getting in one day. I don't know why they didn't get in this time, but they give them a few more times to get nominated. I think eventually that's a band that will go in there. Um, Melissa Etheridge, another artist, so another solo artist, very successful in the early to the mid '90s. She was all over MTV, all over the radio. Um, she's a little bit of she's a little bit of rock and roll, a little bit of country, a little bit of pop. Um, and so for that reason alone, maybe she deserves to go in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I would have any qualms. I like some of the stuff from Melissa Etheridge when it was on MTV and the radio and stuff back in the early mid '90s. But um, so I would have no problem with her getting in. But it's actually a little surprising that she hasn't already gotten into me. Um, Lauren Hill, heard the name. I think she's a rap artist. I'm not too familiar with her. So again, I question if somebody like Lauren Hill even deserves to go into Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, Jeff Buckley, that's another one I'm surprised not in there, but I think eventually, you know, he'll get in there. Black Crowes, Black Crowes were huge in the early to mid '90s too, but you know, for many years, Chris and Rich Robinson, the brothers, um, that formed the band, you know, and were the core center of that band and the main songwriters, they went without speaking for several years. They're back together, reunited, put out a great new album, I think, last couple year or so. And they're out there touring again. So I think maybe if they get nominated the next time and they're still out there doing this and the band's still going strong, I think they'll have a future chance to get into rock and roll. And Black Crowes, I think they made a little bit of noise and a lot of noise actually, but with the feuding brothers. But the music, man, it was good. The music reminded me like the Cross. They really reminded me like of a modern day Aerosmith, and they just had a great kind of gritty Aerosmithy type of meets Rolling Stones type of sound, and it was just beautiful music. And so I really do think the Black Crowes deserve to go in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame eventually, and we'll see what happens with that. New Edition, you know, Bobby Brown and the guys in Belle Biv DeVoe, they're not in there yet. Again, you know, New Edition had some hits on MTV and the radio back in the 1980s, but I don't know that I consider New Edition rock and roll. I mean, closer to R&B. Maybe some people consider them rock and roll because they were on MTV and a lot of hits on the radio. I don't really know, but let's let's test that theory. Now, I was kind of wondering, you know, going back 40 years ago, it would have been 1986, and I was kind of wondering what was being played on MTV back in the day. Okay, and so to be specific, I looked up what was on the top, what was the top 10 songs on the top 20 on MTV's top 20 countdown for April um, of 1986. This is what was popular at the time, just to kind of show you how much the world has changed. Kiss by the song Kiss by Prince. Prince, of course, has since passed away. Um, Addicted to Love, that was another popular one. I'll never forget. All over MTV and the radio. Palmer, sadly, he's passed away too. Um, West End Girls by the Pet Shop Boys. Again, not a huge Pet Shop Boys fan myself, but back in the 1986, they were all over the place, all over MTV and radio, and I do remember that one song. It was a hit for them. Um, Rock Me Amadeus by Falco. That was another one of those one-hit wonders. I don't really know what they're doing today. They're probably retired because I don't really hear about that band too much. Why Can't This Be Love? We were talking about this earlier in our newscast, the fact that Van Halen's 5150 is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. And Why Can't This Be Love was at number 5 on the MTV Top 20 Countdown. And amazing when you consider, I recently read about the fact that when Sammy Hagar first joined the band, Eddie Van Halen was very concerned how fans were going to react to the band's new lineup. And so he made a rule that for that one album, 5150, the band was not going to release any music videos like they were typically known for doing. He wanted to see, first of all, how the fans would react to the new lineup, the new album, and he wanted to see if they could have a hit album without having a single music video. And of course, MTV was back in the day very popular. Almost every band put out 3 or 4 music videos per album. This was nobody understood why Van Halen, the album was doing great, but they had not a single music video. Now, during that time, they did release home video, very first VHS tape back in the day, very first home video featuring the new lead singer, Sammy Hagar. And so MTV, since they did not have any music-related videos from the new album, they started playing these video clips off of Live Without a Net because, for example, it was an official video, but they could show the fans like the live version of Why Can't This Be Love off Life Without a Net. And you start to see that as a kind of video that would be played, to kind of promote 5150. That's kind of an interesting thing that happened with Van Halen, in 1986. At number 6 was Live to Tell by Madonna. Harlem Shuffle was the number 7 song on MTV's top 20. Again, Harlem Shuffle by the Rolling Stones. I remember that song. It was a little bit of a different type of track for the Rolling Stones, kind of when they were starting to make a comeback, after they had not putting any new music out for about 2 or 3 years. And then Manic Monday at number 8, of course, by the Bangles. That's one song by Bangles I really, really love. That song just it sticks in my head every time I hear it on the radio. What You Need, of course, by INXS. And at number 10 on MTV's top 20 countdown for April of 1996 was How Will I Know by the late, great Whitney Houston. Man, I cannot believe that's what was going on in music in 1986, 40 years ago, as we sit, 40 years ago, folks. That's what was going on in the world. Another thing I wanted to kind of research and find out about is the top metal albums for April 1986. What were they? Okay. And so again, going back 40 years ago, folks, in 1986, these were the popular metal albums at the time. Let's see what you think about this. Master of Puppets by Metallica. Peace Sells, but Who's Buying by Megadeth. The Ultimate Sin by Ozzy Osbourne. Of course, this was the final Ozzy Osbourne album to feature guitar great Jakey Lee. Of course, 5150 by the new Sammy Hagar fronted Van Halen. Turbo by Judas Priest. Now the album, it really, it's still kind of a very controversial album amongst the Judas Priest fans because that was the first album where Priest kind of went heavy on the keyboards. It was quite a drastic kind of change in the sound, but I still love the song Turbo Lover. A lot of the diehard Judas Priest fans did, but it was just a different sound for the band. But it is honestly one album that really hasn't kind of held up all these years later. I mean, I think most Judas Priest fans would much rather be talking about Painkiller than Turbo Lover, if we're just honest here. Somewhere in Time, very popular album by Iron Maiden, so I do remember that. Poison, 40 years ago, debuted with their Look What the Cat Dragged In album. And we were talking earlier about Rats Dancing Undercover turning 40 this year. So that was also kind of a very big, hard rock album from 1986. Now, to close our JRock's Babylon News Report today, I wanted to see, since we're talking about what was popular 40 years ago, what is popular, what are the popular metal and hard rock albums on the Billboard chart currently? And for April 2026. Now, this is very interesting what I found out. What I was able to find out, and according to Billboard, is that they do not have a lot of new releases that are actually on the Billboard chart in regards to metal and hard rock. What they're constantly finding on the Billboard chart is what's called classic legacy albums, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I go down the list. Okay, but for April 2026, these are the top selling hard rock metal albums, and there's some of these artists have more than one legacy album on the Billboard chart. This is very interesting. Queen's Greatest Hits at number 1. Queen's Platinum Collection, number 2. Linkin Park is at number 3 with Meteora. Linkin Park is also at number 4 on the Billboard chart as far as these legacy classic albums with Hybrid Theory. Nickelback, the best of Nickelback Volume 1. Okay, now the rest of the list, we're getting in some real classic legacy albums. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. AC/DC is at number 6 and 7 with Back in Black and Highway to Hell. Number 9, Led Zeppelin 4. At number 10, Metallica's Black Album. And also still on the Billboard chart, which deserves a very honorable mention, is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. And at number 11, of course, is Nevermind by Nirvana. I'm not really surprised that these classic albums are still charting on the Billboard chart. And from what I was able to find out, the reason for that is because of all the streaming services that exist today. And that's how a lot of people consume their music these days. And they go back and they purchase the greatest hits collections by their favorite artist, or they stream their favorite songs. And that's how an album such as Back in Black or Highway to Hell is still charting, or like Dark Side of the Moon. Are you kidding me? That never has really been off the charts. But that's what's charting on Billboard. Nothing really new. But I thought, oh man, I wanted to share this with you because man, it's just amazing that these classic albums we grew up on, they're still making an impact on the future generations, of rock fans. So, man, I am Jason JRock Houston, and this has been JRock's Babylon News for, as I said, April 27th, 2026. We'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.